combine small town roots with business savvy, and you've got the Rural Rundown podcast. We're sharing our marketing and branding strategies, tips, and tricks that rural businesses can use to educate, inspire, and entertain their customers, and to help you make sales and hit profit goals. So what does it take to go from your mom is your only fan to famous in a small town? Tune in and listen up as we feature business owners and organizations that are doing big things in their community and creating opportunities for generations to come.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Rundown podcast. Today we have Brittany and Travis Luthi from Three Bears Honey, and I'm so excited to interview them. Brittany and I used to work at the same advertising agency in Fargo, and I knew that they had this business and would see them at the farmer's market every once in a while, but I didn't really know too much about it. So I'm very excited today to kind of dive into the details and learn more about what they do and how they market their business. So Brittany and Travis, can you guys go ahead and tell me kind of how you got into the bee business and what your different roles are?
Definitely. So yeah, Three Bears Honey is a family business. I am just kind of on the marketing side and handling farmers markets, but Travis is the one who's out in the thick of it with the bees. Three Bears was started by his dad probably almost 40 years ago. And he had just started on a smaller scale, like working alongside a commercial beekeeper and then expanding into the business that it is today. Travis, do you want to talk a little bit about your role?
Well, pretty much I just work with the bees every day. Every facet of beekeeping, pretty much, harvesting the honey, taking care of the bees before harvest, after harvest, bottling, labeling, delivering, everything. And I spend time with them in the winter too in Texas. So we're pretty much with, working with them all the time. So.
What are the hours of a beekeeper? I was very curious about this.
It varies. I mean, like, we got to move them. Like, I just unloaded them off a semi last week, so we got to move them, and you have to start out really early while they're still like in their hive, because if it's warm out, they're just gonna be flying. So we got to move them, and that can start as early as 5 o'clock, and you can do it at night too, and that'll take into the night. So I don't know. It always varies,
That's why we live close to like the main facility where they bottle and do all of that, because it seems like you never know when you might have to run over there. So
yeah, I cannot imagine trying to make bees go where they're supposed to go. Like, I've seen people move like cattle or pigs, yes, but like bees, yes, you have to move them too. So that's just kind of wild in my brain to imagine that.
They have to go to different yards because there's, just to spread them out, because, bees go about like 2 miles. They fly about 2 miles, so it's best to spread them out all over the place so they can just cover a huge radius. If you had them all in one place, there just wouldn't be enough for them to get, as flowers, nectar, pollen,
Yeah. When you say you have to go down to Texas, the bees, so you guys are in Moorhead, Minnesota. And you have to go down to Texas in the winter. Can you kind of explain that and what you do?
So around November, they go down to Texas because obviously they'll freeze up here. And so we ship them down there in November. I go down in about January and get them ready for pollination. That pretty much means like finding the weak ones and, kind of dividing them out. Like in California, they only want the big hives that pay, I lost my train of thought, sorry.
So yeah, I think typically, so when you're down there, you're evaluating the hives, looking at them, seeing which ones are the healthiest.
Yeah.
The healthy hives, the strong hives are the ones that they want to use out in California for pollination. Our bees are usually helping with almond pollination. So once we find the healthy hives, we ship those out there, and they're there for until March usually, and then they come back to Texas and then kind of wait for it to warm up around here, and then we send them back.
Cool. That's so wild.
I think something that people would be interested in knowing. And like Rachel was talking about, so you can move livestock and you can whatever. You don't just place like honeybee hives wherever. It's very strategic and like where their water is and where their food will be.
That's
Can
correct.
you maybe like walk us through what that looks like and what that strategy is going into moving hives?
Well, we move them by, using we use a skid steer, load them up on a truck. But yeah, we always look for areas that, might have sunflowers or wildflowers. We've had a lot of success around the Red River. I think there's a lot of wildflowers along the Red River. We look for alfalfa. We try to avoid like large areas of farmland because there's just not really anything there. They don't get a lot of stuff off, a lot of the commercially raised crops around here. So we try to find, CRP land too. We look for that. And, we just set them out, and every year is different. It seems like, you can think, 1 year a yard might do really well, but then the next year it might not do well at all. There's a few though that we always know we're going to get a big crop from. This is very, we really like those yards.
On average, like what is your honeybee or like your honey crop? What does that look like each year on average?
Well, we like to get about 100-pound average, but that hasn't happened in a long time. I'd say we usually get about 50 to 60 pounds per hive. So, I mean, that's just okay. I mean, anything above like 75, 80, that'd be a good crop. But we always dream of that 100-pound crop.
Yeah. So when we talk about, okay, little known facts about me, I raised honeybees, like not a lot, like It was just something that we did for ourselves. So it wasn't like we took this and like put it into production. So I know a little bit about it. We also did maple syrup because apparently my dad was just all about the weird things that we could do on our farm. I grew up in Wisconsin. So the way maple syrup works is that you can have like 40 gallons of sap, but that only makes 1 gallon of syrup.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
What is there anything between like, because you guys just do raw honey, so is it strictly like you get this many pounds out of the hive and that's how many pounds it is?
It's exactly what you take off. So yeah, I understand what you're talking about with sap, or I mean maple syrup or whatever. It's honey is what we get out of there. You don't melt it down or anything, so you don't have to like condense it like you do with maple syrup.
Yeah, Rachel and I are both very curious about what is raw and like filtered versus unfiltered honey. Can you clue us in on that?
Yeah, Brittany, go ahead.
Yeah, so filtered honey is just, or unfiltered honey is just so you'll get all the pollen from the area, all of the good stuff. What might help your allergies. We just don't filter the honey. Of course, if there were any like bee particles, we would remove those, but yeah, the little healthy nutrients will still be in there. And all of our honey is unfiltered. What's unique about raw, so only some of our honey is raw. So honey is naturally thick. And while it comes out of the hive liquid, if you don't warm it to like melt it down, it'll solidify within like a couple weeks. So we offer raw honey just as kind of a more natural alternative, that it hasn't been melted. It's a bit different in that since it is thick, you have to scoop it out with a spoon rather than, pour that liquid onto your toaster and your coffee. But it's definitely a popular alternative. I love raw honey, so.
Okay, tell me if this is true or false. Since I grew up with honey, when that honey would crystallize, we would just keep ours in mason jars, right? And then you just warm it up in the microwave or something. You still use the honey. My boyfriend, when the honey crystallizes, he's like, it's bad. We got to throw it away.
That's true. I think honey will be like around longer than us. Like in 1,000 years, the honey you have in your pantry right now will still be edible, if it could make it through. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard it by now, but they find honey in the pyramids in Egypt that's still edible, and it's good. How many hives do you have then?
I don't have any anymore. This is when I was a kid, and like my dad and his best friend growing up for some reason they're like, we're gonna get into honeybees. My uncle Toby, he was a truck driver, and so a lot of weird things happened in the era of truck driving, where like he'd be on the CB with somebody, and next thing we know, we'd be like in the venture of selling these shoestring potatoes because they're from this huge truckload of things that kind of had tipped over. So we did honeybees that way. And so the process of like taking the honey from the hives when we did it, and so tell me if this is how you guys do it or what that process looks like for you, is there would be like a big like cylindrical drum, and you put the combs, which are just like slats, put them around the outside, and then we would crank it, which seemed like for hours, and then the honey comes out of the combs. Is that still how you process honey, or what does that look like for you guys?
It's the same concept, but it's all automated. It's called an extractor. Sounds like you're using a manual one. Yeah. And I could see how that'd take a long time, but so how frames are covered, like with wax, it's capped over. So we run the individual frames through a extractor. It decaps them and then it spins them around like you did, but it does it in like with a machine. You don't have to do it by hand.
Probably much faster.
Yeah, much faster. Yeah. I've never done it the way you did it, so I imagine that'd be a little tougher to do it that way.
Yeah, we did that for like 3 summers.
You got muscles though then, huh?
Yeah, we did. We did. And again, it was just like small scale kind of stuff. But Rachel also told me a little bit that you guys go to farmers markets and you market your product that way. Maybe talk to us a little bit about what that marketing looks like versus marketing in grocery stores.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, farmers markets are wonderful. I love that. It gives us that opportunity to talk to customers or users in person, hear how they're using the honey, hear feedback on honey. Typically for marketing purposes, I guess I usually just promote it. Social media is fantastic, and that's the main way that we promote it. Also, I think that like farmers markets in general have done really enhanced and have been doing a better job of marketing the vendors at farmers markets. So they're great about doing that too, and sharing updates about like if we share an update, they share an update. And I think that like our community is just gravitating more toward farmers markets and buying local, and that trend. So they want to support local. They want to learn about your business, and they want to know the people who are behind the honey or behind the product.
When did you guys start with the Red River Market?
We've been with the market since the beginning. So
15?
Yeah, 2015 is when it started. This will be its 7th season.
Have you seen quite a shift in difference, like you said?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's grown exponentially. I think when we started, there was probably like just, I don't know, 10 vendors maybe.
10, 12, yeah.
10, yeah. And we weren't even one of the first. I mean, we came a few weekends in. But yeah, now, I mean, there's probably 50 plus vendors some weekends in the heat of the summer. It's amazing. So.
Cool.
I think we're seeing that across the board, where people want to know where their food's coming from and how it gets made. Like you said, like putting a face to the name. So I think farmers markets are interesting, and to hear that you guys have been doing it for so long is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have this correctly, I remember your guys' honey was in the grocery stores when I was living up in Fargo. Can you tell me about how that process, what does that look like? How'd you get into the stores? Anything into that?
We've probably been in the grocery stores around town for probably 20 years or something like that. I think that it was my dad. Obviously, he got it into Cashwise. I think Cashwise at first, and it just kind of, as we grew bigger, just each store, gradually every store in town, and then just like that, we started moving up, the Grand Forks down to Detroit Lakes, St. Cloud. Now we're Minneapolis, Wisconsin. Just always trying to find new stores, but it was just a very gradual thing it's taken a long time. But it's there's other honeys out there you got to compete with, but it's gone pretty well so far.
I think honey is such an interesting area to work in, especially even within the ag sector, is a very niche market.
Yes.
Even though your dad started this years ago, is this something you guys see like carrying on and your kids taking on someday?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna keep it going as long as we can. I mean, it's something that I've done, for most of my life now. So it's kind of like, it's just kind of like a second nature, you know. And we have two sons, so I'd love it if they'd like to help, but if they're not interested, it's fine with me too.
I know they're so little at this point, but do they like the bees? Do they talk about them? I'm just
Yes.
curious.
Elijah's our oldest. I think he's 4, but he's very interested in the bees. He loves to go to, we call it the honey house, where Travis works. And so he loves to go to the honey house and visit, and has helped like Travis's dad, his dad will label and Elijah will put it into the box. So just like little things like that. But he's also helped at farmers markets, and I think he likes to do that. And he makes us laugh because he likes to have his spoonful of honey each day. But I had heard that at daycare, he was telling kids that honey will get rid of their hiccups. So he's even trying to sell it that way. Like they say, peanut butter will get rid of your hiccups. Like, a spoonful of honey will get rid of your hiccups. So
You got a
another
little
one
salesman
right there.
I had never heard of that until he said that. I don't know. I've never tried that, but
I think it was because I gave him honey one time
Yeah.
when he had the hiccups because he didn't want peanut butter, and it did get rid of them. But I guess they're both sticky, and
Yeah.
it worked that way.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
I just lost my train of thought of what I was going to ask you about next.
Brenna,
so
just a second. You're like, is that your screen that's
You see that?
about to die?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
It's
don't want
right
you to
here.
die on us. Sorry. Pause.
that's fine.
No problem.
Yeah, take a break. You guys are doing great.
Okay, good. It's
Oh man.
always hard to know sometimes, and being on the opposite side of things. Like,
Yeah,
like
you
that,
usually get to be
more.
the question person.
Yeah, usually. Now I see how it feels.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Are you guys on summer hours yet? Or do they still do that?
Yeah, they didn't do them last year because of the pandemic.
Oh,
We were
sure.
working from home anyway, but they are starting them this week. So hopefully Friday I should be able to take off. So if I can get my hours.
Are you back in office? Like, did you guys?
We are, yeah. Yep. And we can work from home if we need to. Like, so today I'm working from home, but yeah,
Oh, cool.
usually it's in the office.
Good. Yeah, I'd like someday I'm like, I should come back and just go to the office, but say hi. But I don't even know. I mean, most people are kind of gone.
Yeah, they are. You
So-
wouldn't know me and Aaron.
You're down in South Dakota then?
Well, I grew up in South Dakota. Now I'm in Maynard, Minnesota.
Maynard, where's that?
So do you know where Marshall is and Wilmer is? It's kind of in between there.
Okay.
Yep.
Small town.
Yes. Yep. Very
Okay.
small town. My husband's a farmer, so we were kind of in
that's cool.
between outside of Maynard. And
What does he grow then?
yeah, so he grows corn and soybeans, and then he does edible beans, so black beans and kidney beans.
Oh, nice.
And then they're not doing them this year, but they do sugar beets. Like that's a huge thing down here. But there's sugar beets up there too.
Oh, there's
right?
tons of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's so strange because like in South Dakota, there's not sugar beets. So then
Yeah.
when I came here, I mean, I think I heard a little bit of it up there when I lived in Fargo, but then when we came here, I'm like, why is this such a big deal?
Yeah.
But it is. It's like it's the perfect ground for it or whatever.
Yeah.
So strange. Yeah.
You have livestock then at all, or just?
No livestock, just a huge black Great Dane.
Oh, yeah?
he's 170 pounds, so he might
Oh,
count
man.
as livestock.
He's like
might be categorized as livestock.
Yeah. No, he's a giant, but no animals yet. I'd like some goats, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Working on that one. Okay.
Trying to sell Jeremy on that.
Yeah. Well, we're trying. All right.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, my camera was gonna die.
No worries.
Do you kind of
problem.
remember where we were at, Brenna? Did you have your thought?
I do. I want to know, Brittany, because you work in an agency, so now you've come into like the family business and helped with marketing there. What is marketing a small niche business in a rural area or a business that is like a predominantly rural industry business? What does that look like different than what some of the clients you work with might be?
That's a great question, because I feel like there's a lot of similarities in it too. But I think that, well, I guess actually I feel like it could be relative to both, but people want to see, they want to know like the behind the scenes, like what's going on. They want to see us out like in the bee field and see what the bees are up to, and like to see live videos and kind of know about the process, which I would say is, similar to like the agency I work with. We are a B2B agency, but I think that, when they're marketing to their customers, they want to see those same things. And I guess, and even like, I think that there's just equivalent things. So like for us, farmers market is a way to meet and discuss one-on-one with customers and hear how they're using our product, or hear questions that they might have. Whereas with our agency, it might be more that our clients are going to larger trade shows to have those discussions. So I think it's just, similar ways of communicating, but just different avenues.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I didn't really think about trade shows kind of acting as farmers markets, but being that true source of like a market, and kind of like getting your project or your product directly from the source.
Yeah, that's the face to face. I never really put that connection together either. That's kind of cool. What has there been any really creative like marketing things you've done, or ways you've talked about your business that you could share, or maybe another business in agriculture like you could possibly apply that you saw good things from?
I guess it's, always trying to figure out something new or a different like creative way. I mean, most of the ways that we're communicating with people are through social media, so trying to figure out something creative to do. So this was last summer that I did this, but I got quite a bit of interaction. I had done tried to figure out something unique around bees I hadn't posted about before. So I did Can You Spot the Queen? And so Travis had held up like a bee frame that had the queen on it, and the queen looks a little bit different than the rest of the bees. And so I had posted that to see if people could spot her, which some could, but it did get a lot of interaction. And then like the next day I zoomed in and showed where she was at.
Cute. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I just have a couple questions like for you on what are people most surprised about when they find out you have this business and work with bees? Are there things that you guys know, but when you tell other people, they're like, wait, what? Are there any of those things that come to mind?
Number one question I'm always asked is, have you ever been stung? And of course I have, but I mean, honeybees aren't as vicious as people think they are. They're not like the yellow jackets that you see like around the dumpsters or wherever. I mean, I think honeybees are actually a very peaceful insect. They don't like attack unless they're bothered. While yellow jacket will just, if you're in their way, you might get, stung. But yeah, people don't really realize the difference between a yellow jacket and a honeybee a lot of the time. And honeybees are actually really, I think, friendly insects compared to other types of bees.
Yeah, I think right away when you describe that, I think about like all the cartoons you see as kids where the bees are like scary and missiles. Yes, but so this leads me to my next question, which might be kind of weird, but do bees have like a personality? Can you like tell, like obviously there's a queen.
Yeah. At times I can tell when they're more uptight, and I can tell when they're very calm. I can like kind of feel it sometimes just by the way they sound, like, okay, I got to put on a veil, or sometimes I'm like, no, we're good here. I don't have to put on a veil. So you can just kind of sense it once you crack the first hive, what it's going to be like. I mean, you go by the weather too. I mean, if it's a nice sunny day, chances are you can just go out there just like this. But if it's been rainy or cloudy, that's when they're a little more angry. But you can definitely tell it when you're around them long enough. You can tell what they're going to be like, sometimes like there's been times where I just step out of the truck and I get stung like 3 times, and it's like, okay, it's time to put on a veil. And then other days it's like, step out of the truck, you don't get stung the whole time, and you're digging in the hive and stuff, and no problem. So, you know, it's always varies.
If you guys or are, let me think about how I want to phrase this question. Like, do you guys grow your hives at all? Do you plan on expanding, or are you kind of at capacity? And if you do expand and add more hives, is it just derivatives of the colonies that you have already, or do you buy your colonies? What does that look like?
I'd say it's about half and half. I mean, we buy packaged bees out of California. We got about half our bees are brand new to us, and then the other half we try to split after they come off of pollination. So splitting is just pretty much, a hive consists of 2 boxes when they go out to California to pollinate. When they come back, we split them, and we split the 2 boxes apart so you can make 2 hives out of it. Of course, you need to buy a queen or raise a queen cell that you stick in the one you're splitting. And most of the time you want to get rid of the old queen. So you really need 2 new queens, and you just, build them up over the, in the spring until they come up here this time of year where they should be ready to gather. But I'd say it's half and half. Half we split and half we just buy brand new.
What are some things you wish people knew about honeybees or your business in general?
I guess, I mean, what Travis talked about, and just that honeybees are, generally friendly. I think that is a big part in is just educating on the difference between a honeybee versus some of those more feisty bees that are out there, because even at farmers markets too. So August in the Fargo-Moorhead area, there are lots of yellow jackets swarming around, and even sometimes stinging people at the market. And I can't tell you how many times people are like, "Oh, I see you brought the bees with you today," or, and then I have to be like, "Oh, those are the wrong kind of bee," or I just try to playfully say that, because I don't want honeybees, which are a lot sweeter, to get that rep. So I think that that's definitely something that we try to educate on and wish people knew. And then I guess even through social media, I do try to share like bee facts, because I think people do find bees fascinating, and it seems like everyone has a new question. So like, that how many bees it takes to, make honey, like a bee in its lifetime might only make like a 12th teaspoon, I think is what they say, of honey in its lifetime, and that it lives for just a couple of weeks. So they're little, but they sure, do a lot for their size. So just trying to educate and share those fun bee facts with people. I think they tend to enjoy that.
Yeah, I've reached through your social media when Rachel was like, "Hey, I have these people, I want to have them on the podcast." And I think you guys do an absolutely fabulous job sharing those facts, and with like really great pictures too, right? So like these are well lit, very inviting pictures. You're showcasing your product, you're showcasing like where the bees live. Like currently I'm looking at one with a bee on a flower. And you do have that background of like working for a marketing agency. What are some tips you would give people on social media? Like if they can start implementing something today to bolster their social media and help out their business, what would it be?
First and foremost, just take the picture. I think that we tend to overthink things. And I think that if I might dare say that, I think that I've kind of taught that with you a little bit, like just take a picture out there. The other day he took one, and I think it was just to show me what he was up to, but he was waiting to move bees. But he sent me a picture, and I put it on social media and just said that, getting ready to move bees, and it got a lot of interaction. And people just want to see what you're doing. Of course, Instagram is a place where you do want to try to craft it and make it make sure that it's engaging and pretty, I guess. But I think, again, we often just hesitate to take those pictures because we don't feel like we're the expert photographer. But when you're in agriculture, people, I think they just want to see what you're doing. So But of course there are, tips that you can consider. I mean, everyone's smartphone for the most part these days should already be taking a high quality photo anyways, but you can double check your settings to make sure that they're in line. And if you're taking video, of course, horizontal video is often preferred, but at the same time, you can work with vertical video if you're just going to be sharing it on like directly to Facebook or Instagram. So tips like those are certainly things to consider.
I started my career on TV and I wish more people knew to shoot video horizontal rather than vertical. Like, unless you're in the stupid app that you're using, then you can shoot it vertical. But anytime else, like, turn that phone sideways. So I love that you pointed that out and shared that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just comfort. You're used to holding your phone vertically and that's how you're taking it. But
Yeah, but it's definitely more like you can use it in so many different places too. I think that's the other thing people maybe like forget, that they can cross post and they can use the same content in lots of different places. So yeah, and I'm like so jacked about this conversation today because I feel like I could geek out about bees forever. When you were talking about them, like, oh, but they're like natural pollinators, and like now that I grew up with bees, every time I see them, I'm like, I want to be their friend, and like I have this urge to like touch them and like cuddle them, but I'm like, they're bees. They're like,
you need to get yourself a hive.
I know it. Well, we live in Arizona now, so there's not as much for them to pollinate. Yeah. I think another question I had was, because I didn't do a whole lot of research into your business and what you do, something I always find interesting is that whatever the bees are pollinating, whatever they're like eating, gives their honey different flavors. Do you guys, when you're placing bees, do you keep that in mind, and do you market that when you're marketing your honey, or not really?
I'd say up here we mainly get, sweet clover, white sweet clover and yellow clover that grows along the ditches, roadsides. That's the main thing we get, but we don't really separate it, because you can get, sweet clover, sunflower, basswood honey. The only, we mix it all together, but every once in a while, if we can find a buckwheat field, we'll separate that out, because buckwheat is something that people, I don't know if either of you have had buckwheat honey, but people either love it or hate it. It's a really black honey. So it's kind of a bitter taste. So we separate that out, but we're always looking for buckwheat locations. But aside from that, we just mix it all together.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I have a couple. These are like kind of rapid fire. They don't have to be fast though when you respond to them. Where did Three Bears Honey, the name, come from?
I don't know. I think when we first started, we had 3 sizes of bear, and now we only have 2, but 3 bears just kind of stuck. And then there's the 3 bears. What's the story with 3 bears in it? Is there a story?
Well, there's Goldilocks and the 3 Bears.
Yeah.
Say Goldilocks.
That it might be a playoff on that. I was very young when they, my parents kind of came up with that, but it's kind of stuck. So,
Yeah, and I would say that just from a marketing aspect, when it was in 2015 that we kind of launched a rebrand for them, and prior to that they had just used a generic label that didn't have a logo, and it said Three Bears Honey on it, but it also said like Luthi family. And so I think that the honey has often been known as like Luthi honey or Three Bears Honey, and both types of honey. But yeah, in 2015, we worked with a local designer to come up with a logo and a new label that more clearly says Three Bears Honey right on the top, and it does say like Luthi on the side. But I think that that's helped to get better brand recognition for Three Bears. And so, not that it's bad to hear Luthi honey, that's fine too. But nice to hear more people, talking about Three Bears honey.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is for each of you: what's the best way to eat or drink or whatever you do with honey?
I can go first. I'm actually drinking a cafe meal, so that's honey cinnamon, like a honey cinnamon latte. That's probably the way I use it the most.
That sounds good.
I'd say the main way I eat honey is probably during harvest. I just eat honeycomb a lot. That's when I consume it the most. But other than that, it's like whatever Brittany comes up with. If she's making a drink like that, I'll have that. I like honey on toast, honey and tea. Brittany makes a great honey ham, which it's just delicious, and that's something I really like. But it seems like probably every couple of weeks I eat honey. So.
And Elijah just likes to eat it straight out of the jar with a spoon.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes.
Oh, that's so cute.
Actually, we've seen customers at the market go and ask like another vendor, "Oh, can I have a spoon?" Like I've seen people eating it out of the jar at the market.
That's you guys need to start having spoons now for when people ask, or like sell it with the jar of honey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There we go.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Well.
What is next? Is there anything upcoming, or what's next for Three Bears Honey, your guys' business?
I mean, I think, they're constantly expanding and adding more bees, and so hopefully making more honey. We're always looking for new stores to be in. More recently, we've expanded into like the Minneapolis area and are in some of the local grocery stores down there, which is fantastic. So of course, we want to just continue to see that growth in other areas. We have the farmers market coming up this summer that we participate in almost every weekend, the Red River Market. So that's coming up, and I don't know about anything else.
No, I think you covered it pretty good. Yeah.
It'd be fun to one day like have a honey store, or like when we've traveled, we really enjoy like seeing how other people like are trying the local honey. Is something that we've done, and I've always been inspired by when we were in Florida once. We toured like a honey business, and it was just neat. Like we didn't tour it exactly. Actually, it was that they had like a honey store, but then they were doing the extracting and bottling and like the room behind it. But I always thought that was really neat. So that's kind of like an inspiration, but that's probably many years down the line. We gotta have goals, right?
Oh yeah,
that's cool. I love it.
I think that 100% plays into the whole thing of like people want to see how it's made and like what goes into it and the people that are doing it. So I don't think that goal is like too far off for you, really. I think that's an awesome aspiration to have.
Brenna, do you have any other last questions?
I don't think so. I feel like not on the topics we're on. Like I said, like I could go all day and be like, tell me all about your bees and what are like, I think it's just so interesting. There's so many parts of it that people don't know about when it comes to producing honey. They're like, okay, so you have bees and then they make honey and then that's that. But the process of getting it from the bee to being the form of honey that they pick up off the shelf, I think is a long journey that most people don't recognize.
Yeah, I think it really is. I mean, it's a kind of a different, intricate process, I guess. Every step is important,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's very cool. So I don't think I have any more questions today, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and chat with us and share about your business.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for.
Yeah.
Hopefully you got some information out of this.
For sure. Before we go, where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you?
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Absolutely. We also, if you go to threebearshoney.com, you can get in touch with us that way. Yeah.
Perfect. Go buy their honey.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you ship?
We don't ship, but you can buy it on fargostuff.com.
Yeah, they'll take care of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Rural Rundown podcast.
Thanks for listening. You can always find us on social media at The Rural Rundown.
And if you really liked this episode, we would totally love it if you gave us a review and gave us a little rating.
It would mean so much to us. And for more small town roots and business savvy, catch us on the next one.